Hey, look, my name is Colin. I'm the CEO of the Improvement Foundation, and welcome this morning. And thank you for coming here very early in the morning. And we want to try to get you out so you can get down to the State Theatre in the opening too. And I'd like to acknowledge the traditional owners of the land and pay my respects to their elders, past, present, and future, and thank them for allowing us to meet on this land today. Thank you. Well, the launch of Elicio. This is our first launch of Elicio. This is we're very excited about this offering that we're working with Telstra Health on, and this is really just to give you a little bit of an idea about how we see this working. For those that don't know a lot about the Improvement Foundation, we're a not-for-profit organisation. We're focused very much on quality improvement activities and programs. Have been that's our main ambit, and we've been operating the Australian Primary Care Collaboratives program over the last 10 years, which is probably the flagship program that most people know about. It's through that reason that we sort of end up in this space, because we need really good quality data to be able to work with quality improvement. If you don't have that, well then you actually don't know what you're doing. And pretty much 10 years ago, when we started the APCC program, we went around Australia on a roadshow to tell people about the program, and part of that was we were going to collect data from GP software, and we were going to house it centrally and compare people's results. And that was borderline heresy on that trip, and it was the most talked about thing. It was unbelievable. I'd come out of emergency services where we have data going all the time, and I just couldn't understand why there was such this passion about it. And there was conspiracy theory all over the place. You wouldn't believe it. But we just went, well, we moved forward, and we did have a lot of people join us and move forward. And over the last 10 years, we've seen GPs and other health professionals are more open to how they would work with data and share data, and that's been really positive. Of course, we always have to be mindful of Privacy Act and comply with Privacy Act and other confidentiality arrangements, but the notion that people can't work together and share their data in a way that actually improves health outcomes and performance, it's unreasonable not to think that can happen. So we've got that need to get data for those purposes, and we see a range of other reasons that people try to get hold of data, especially from the GP environment and primary care, and they're fairly undergunned in that area at the moment, where people are always expecting more from primary care, and GPs especially have to work harder, and we're really trying to look at how we can use data in a way that makes it easier for GPs. So why we've gone down this track is we see a lot of silos of data around Australia in all sorts of ways, and we've been working recently on integrated care work, and we just can't, there's no way to get those data at the moment to flow in a timely fashion so that we can use them in a very, well, in a controlled way, but openly to support care for people and make it easy for GPs. We find it trouble to track people's journeys, because some of the systems, they're getting a lot better and they do talk together, but they're not all talking together. And whilst we have a My Health record, which is a boilerplate system and providing a great deal of service, and underneath that a huge amount of work in e-health that is supporting this sort of work, there's still nothing that really joins the dots up. So we started talking with Telstra Health some time ago, nearly a year ago I think, about what was possible. And this is certainly not a technical drawing. This just means there is a lot of things that Telstra Health can bring to the table here. And Telstra Health's committed to work with us to be able to break the back of this journey, which is not necessarily going to be that easy. Our first stage of development is really to get data to flow in the same way, or a similar way that it has in the past, with structured quality improvement indicators. And then we're going to look at, well, how do we then start to better connect care? And we've got a few sessions over the next short period of time to start to scope that work out. And we've got some ideas, but we're engaging probably the best of our clinicians in some of the work around how we can actually make it easier for them. So we see a range of solutions that are possible, and not all directly related to quality improvement or improving healthcare, but certainly focused on making it a bit easier for the health professionals. We also, in our work with Telstra Health, we're not seeking to replace that traditional data extraction tool market. We don't think we believe that serviced the market quite well, but now I think we're moving on. We know that Medical Director will very shortly release MD Insights, and that will provide population health tool for general practices using medical director. And that's a great step forward, we see it. It's been 10 years coming from our point of view, and the medical directors made that investment, and now a general practice could actually start to look at the population health that they've got within their practice. But when you lift it to another level, when you go to a region or to a state or to the nation, well, it's not possible for one practice to do that. It needs other systems and other power to be able to do that. We know that other vendors are looking at moving into that market, so we're really looking at stage one is just going to get our quality indicator sets out and deliver them to our portal so that we can continue to work with practices in the way that we have worked. And it will carry the most recent of the quality indicator sets. And then stage two, we'll be looking at joining the dots up around the integrated care space. So that's the exciting part. I'd like to invite Michael Boyce up now from Telstra Health just to talk about Telstra Health and what they're bringing to the table to get all this to work.
Good morning everyone, and thanks Colin. It's a privilege to be invited to speak this morning. As I was getting my coffee up the back, I heard a lady say quite rightly, I'm interested in what Telstra Health is actually doing in this space and or doing generally, and I think there's probably some confusion. So in a very brief 5 or 10 minutes, I'm not only going to talk about what we're doing here, but I'm going to talk about what Telstra Health is doing. So if I talk at warp speed, forgive me. In terms of Elicio, they needed a cost-effective platform. We have a platform that we're able to contribute to what Colin and the team were trying to deliver. And I pitched this off their website, but really in terms of integration, accessing, analysing data, we have a health intelligence platform. We can talk to you after this about what that is generally, because we can also provide that to a whole range of areas that might be applicable in your space. But I'll talk about that a little bit more later on. What I wanted to do very quickly was give you just an overview of Telstra Health. So why Telstra, why health? We're only 3 years old. In fact, we're only 2 years old because we've spent the first 12 months trying to work out what the hell we were going to do. So we spent 2 years being productive and the first year being unproductive. We're now over 1,000 staff. This slide's a bit outdated. We're now the largest e-health company in the country. And we're partnering with the sector in all sorts of areas: hospital, aged care, pharmacy, you name it. To give you a flavour as to the sort of personnel we have, I used to run a national aged care agency. I have no telco background. Fiona Webster, who is here with me, up until a number of months ago was the Chief Operating Officer at Austin Health in Victoria. Peter Crome's the ex-CIO of Sonic. So very much a health team inside Telstra. As I said, the areas that we're playing in range from pharmacy all the way through to telemedicine, through to informatics, which we're talking about now here with Colin and the team. And we recently earned the right to operate the National Register, e-Register for bowel cancer and cervical cancer. So we're a standalone business inside Telstra. If you think health, we're not out there buying hospitals, GP practices or doing anything like that. This is technology enablement. So you can see the connection to Telstra. It's a digital world. What Colin refers to is effectively digitisation. Taking a whole lot of processes which are disjointed, don't talk to each other, don't give the right information, and bringing that together to create a more efficient system and better health. Where we're focused in health is around the areas that you can see there. If you talk about big data, data integration, which is the bottom left hand, where that actually contributes, so that's nice, but what do you do with it? What it does contribute to is clearly better healthcare, because better data, better analysis, better information, but also improving the efficiency and productivity across the healthcare system, and we're very focused on that. The information challenge, and hospitals are a good example. Silos of information, interfaces have to be built between various applications. The information's not perfect. A whole picture of the patient is difficult, if not impossible. And the data, as we know, is growing exponentially. As we collect more data is stored, more data is either used or not used, and if it is used, it's used poorly. We bought a company called Dr. Foster a couple of years ago in the UK. They're also in Australia. And I think that was our first foray into informatics. We clearly couldn't build from scratch. We needed to understand it really well, inside out. That's been a great acquisition for us. We're now in a number of countries in Europe, not just in the UK. And as I said, Dr. Foster also operates in Australia. If we talk about Elicio, the platform that we've used we call Spine. There's a creative word. And that's capturing data from a variety of sources to enable insights and to be available for users to use as they determine. It's customised to some extent in that we have to understand what the requirement is of the organisation and what they want to do with it to develop it out for the right experience. We have another product which is very specific to hospitals. It's a plug and play. It takes 2 weeks to implement from start to finish, and it's called Health Central. And for those of you who work in the hospital arena, you can see all the systems that some talk to each other, many are disparate. We can interface to all of those, be up and playing inside a couple of weeks, and that's a solution specifically for hospitals and is growing like topsy. There's some of the customers that we've got with that Health Central product in Australia. So in closing, we're absolutely privileged, Colin, to be able to work with the Improvement Foundation. We also like it because you're a not-for-profit organisation, and I think for us that's a little bit of our mantra as well, is working with organisations that are squarely focused on patient outcomes and patient care. So I hope that gives you some insight into us and what we do with the Improvement Foundation. Thank you.
Thank you very much. One thing I didn't cover off earlier, so before I go to questions, I will cover it off, is the custodianship of the data. That will reside with the Improvement Foundation, and it'll be our responsibility to protect that data, for its life. Same principles apply that have applied with the data we've collected in the past. The owner of the data will remain the owner of that data, and they determine how the data will be used. So we're talking about general practice, they remain the owner of that data, and they can choose how they want to work with us and other systems. I guess the key thing we see with this system is this is scalable to a national level. One of the problems we have is these silos of information around Australia where, a PHN might have some data here and an LHD has some data, and all these geographic constraints actually don't allow some of these larger visions to be had across the nation. So we're really hopeful that some people will see where we want to go with this and work with us and get on board and be able to let those data be used, for better health outcomes, both through planning and delivery in a very trusted and protected environment. So thank you very much for that. Happy to take questions if you have any questions, and other than that, then you're free to go. Any questions?
Colin, just a question. Who owns the data? I mean, there's a question in my mind around quality improvement and the history of data being used for quality improvement, but as we've seen some examples very recent times, data being used to drive commercial outcomes. I mean, that may be appropriate for what we're doing here. I don't want to make a value judgment about that, but I'd be keen to understand where does the line get drawn between quality improvement and commercial outcomes? Where should that line be drawn?
I think the owner of the data is still the owner of the data. So it could be a general practice and they could be looking for better commercial outcomes. The owner is still the owner. We don't transfer any ownership through this process. Where the data are used and they may be aggregated with other data to then present maybe a PHN or a state view, right? Or the GPs in this example would agree to participate in that activity and allow their data to be used. Now, we wouldn't transfer ownership of the data, but the aggregated data sets have to be owned by the entity that's doing the aggregation. and that's how we've worked it in the quality improvement setting. I don't see any real difference between the commercial outcomes. The owner of the data will still be the owner of the data. If we can deliver some better outcomes for healthcare professionals by way of commercial improvements, well, that's a good thing too. I mean, it's not like the business models are, I don't see too many driving Lamborghinis at the moment, but if we can do that as well, that's great. Well, thanks a real lot for coming. It was great to have the numbers here this morning. We know breakfast is always hard, so thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of the conference, and thank you again.